Here we are.
Epic Updates.
Epic Updates. Jonas
Welcome back.
and Ashley.
Hi.
We're back at them. We had to turn down the AC because it sounded like a wind tunnel. So
it's tricky though this time of year because it's 197 degrees outside. So
brutal.
We can't have it ruin the quality of the video, but we also don't want to bake and so
we're sweating for you guys. We're going to keep it short and sweet today.
This is part 2. So we're talking about what the NAR settlement means if you are a buyer.
Mm-hmm.
If you have questions about what it means if you're a seller, that's in the previous video. That's in part 1. So today, part 2, we're going to be talking about what that lawsuit means from a buyer's perspective.
Absolutely.
So tell us what's up.
Kick it off. You got it. So we, as Ashley mentioned, we discussed kind of how that impacts the sellers. To really go hand in hand as far as kind of what, how the settlement went down. This was a class action lawsuit that was brought against the National Association of Realtors, some of the biggest brokerages in the nation. For what it, call it for what it is, they settled, and so now it's changing kind of the landscape as far as representations with buyers and sellers and commission structure and all these things. So we talked about in the previous video, the commission structure has been in place for well over 100 years. So this is a big change for everybody, and just kind of, not just realtors, just talking with realtors, buyers and sellers, lenders, appraisers, escrow companies. Everyone's just, kind of, bracing for, it's going to be a little bumpy and turbulent for a minute. And we've already experienced some of that firsthand right out the gate. So
like day one.
Day one.
Like things are getting already so weird.
Things are getting all sideways. So basically we talked about the seller side, so we won't dip into that too much, but basically how this impacts the buyers now. Previously, buyers were not required to sign buyer broker agreements here in Arizona. I believe there's 19 other states that have already had buyer broker agreement requirements in place, Arizona not being one of them. With this landmark settlement, that is now a requirement across the board, all 50 states. No ifs, ands, or buts. So from a buyer standpoint, just be sure that you, because you're gonna, if you're talking to an agent online on, that you found remotely on Zillow or Facebook or Open House or whatever, before they can take you to tour any homes whatsoever, they are legally required, you are now legally required to sign the buyer broker agreement. So just make sure you know who you're getting in bed with that, because when you sign that, you're basically going to be legally bound to each other. There's 2 versions of this document. There's kind of more of like a light version, and then there's more like a serious version, I guess you'd say. The light version is kind of more one-off property. Maybe you want to do a private tour of a listing, or you're not entirely sure you want to get married to that agent yet, so you kind of want to try it before you buy it. So there's not necessarily a specified timeline on that, but it will be spelled out on that, but you're not committed to a very long length of time. The other one is going to be somebody, maybe you have a long-lasting relationship, maybe one of our clients we work with for years and years and years, or you kind of have that level of comfort with an agent that you've came across, and you're comfortable committing yourself to them. The reason being is because if you sign that, go to a property, sign another one, go to a property, do that 3 or 4 times, you now have legally bound contracts and obligations to however many agents that you sign that with, which could get very messy very quick. And originally we're going to do a 2-part, but I think we're going to do a 3-part, just kind of talking about the pros and cons of this, because I do feel like there is some pros to this as well, which we'll kind of dive into later. But in that document, it basically now decouples the commission. The commission historically has always been generally seller paid, and then that was passed through the listing brokerage, and then the compensation that was offered on the MLS as far as the buyer's agent. The benefit to being a buyer is you had representation essentially for free or at no cost. Fast forward when you go to sell, that's kind of when you play catch up on that and end up paying both sides. So in the past, it always balanced itself out between buys, purchase and sales. Whereas moving forward, it is going to be very different. That does not mean that the sellers cannot offer a commission if they want to continue to do so. And kind of a lot of people that we're talking to, it sounds like more often than not, that's probably going to be the case. They're still going to do it. You know what I mean? That's kind of, they see the value in the buyer's agent and, not having dual agency or even worse yet, a unrepresented buyer, which, in our experience has always generally been a little rocky and bumpy and that sort of thing. So most sellers are going to be on board with it, but keep in mind, not all are. So in the event that they're not, with that document, whatever the commission that's spelled out, that's agreed upon on the buyer's agent agreement, that puts the onus on the buyer. So let's say hypothetically, we'll do a couple scenarios. The seller is agreeable to pay whatever the commission's agreed upon, say it's 2.5%, 3%, whatever it is. In that instance, there's no obligation from the buyer. Commission's taken care of. Let's say they may offer a smaller commission. Let's say maybe they're going to offer a 1.5% commission. You sign buyer broker agreement with the 2.5% commission. That ultimately mean that you would just cover the difference. You would cover the 1%. The seller would cover the difference. In addition, these can be negotiated. So if the seller is not offering co-broke commissions as part of it, it could actually be structured as part of a closing cost credit. So you can negotiate closing cost credits for yourself as a buyer, whether that be paying your actual closing costs, rate and buy downs, like we've talked about in great detail, but also can be applied towards buyer agent commissions as well. And lastly would basically be no commission offered. 100% of what is agreed upon would come, be the responsibility of the buyer. So it's going to be very important to kind of have those conversations with your agent in advance. Find out which properties, what the structure is going to look like, so you can kind of plan and budget accordingly. Make sure that you're comfortable with that you have funds set aside for that, or maybe you could, get that negotiated in the offer. Not a whole lot's going to change on the builder side from what we're told. We actually just left a new builds community and did a video over there that we're going to be pushing out. Most builders are going to just be carrying forward and offering, standard commissions like they have in the past. So the upside, I think, on the new build side is, probably not going to run into a whole lot of instances where that's going to fall under the buyer's responsibility. Resale, it's going to be a little bit more of the Wild West. Yeah. And we're going to kind of see how this plays out. It's probably going to be a bumpy, 3, 4, 6 months till kind of, the new norm kind of becomes a thing, right?
Yeah, and in addition to the commissions now being uncoupled, as Jonas says, there's also no longer any visibility in the MLS.
Correct.
That's where this kind of all stemmed from. So as agents, when we're looking in the MLS and we're looking at homes for you, there's no more transparency.
Field's been removed.
They've been completely removed. Anything in regard to compensation is no longer visible, nor can it be visible in the MLS. The commission can be advertised in other places, but the MLS, it cannot be in there at all. So it's gonna get it'll smooth out. It always does. I mean, it's just change, and change is weird usually for a little while until it's the new norm. And unfortunately, or maybe fortunately, this is probably our new norm. So we'll all get comfortable.
Just takeaway here, just make sure whoever you're deciding to sign that document with and work with, that you're 100% comfortable with them representing you, and just be aware that there could be some costs associated with that. So just make sure, like I said, that that's kind of in your wheelhouse, comfort level, that sort of thing. But love it, hate it, whatever, we're here.
This is what's happening.
It's what's happening. It is a requirement. So again, to see properties, that's not us forcing it on you. That is the legislation not legislation, but the law that's been enacted that is forcing that on all of us. So here we are.
Yeah, it's the standard now. So whether you're using Jonas or myself, you're going to have to sign one. So just make sure that you've chosen the right person that you feel is really going to go and advocate for you. But so this is part 2. We'll do another one. If you are liking these videos and you have something that we'd like to discuss, let us know. Because again, we're doing these for you. So but thanks for watching, and until next time.
Appreciate it, everyone. Bye.